All right, it's the first Market Monday of the year. Thanks for coming in. Gonna have Jody Vilcheck in today, Brian Neumann, to talk about mortgage, the new short-term rental ordinances in place, and we talk about the market both locally and nationally this week, Market Monday. So let's just dive right into these numbers. Jody, thanks for joining me for the first Market Monday of the year. What do you think about these numbers?
I mean, it's only the first week, but it's kind of crazy. Down 50% in inventory and price of homes. I mean, they're up 50% still, so.
Yeah, crazy is a good word, right? So year to date, again, we're only 10 days into the new year, but inventory is less than half of what it was at this point last year.
Right.
And it was low last year,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But the thing that's crazy to me is sales. So again, everybody knows that I always look at, or if you watch this every week, you know, and if you're not watching this every week, why not? Thank you. So year to date, 11 homes have come on the market in Bluffton. Year to date, 21 homes have gone under contract.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the crash? Where's the crash that they've been predicting for like a year?
I don't see it happening.
So right now, all I'm looking at is inventory. This is the time of year that we should see week after week inventory building. This is what historically happens. Lowest amount of inventory over the holidays and then building. So pay attention to that with us. But we can see 10 days into the new year, it's not building yet.
Right.
And especially not compared to last year.
Right.
So, you have any friends that are in the short-term rental market?
I do.
What are they saying about this new ordinance?
I don't see any pushback yet. I just see that it's the town looking to try to push for more regulations. And they're almost being a POA with the regulations that they have put in place with the size of your parking spots and...
Yeah, well, I think, you know, what you're saying is really a good way to put it, to be honest with you. You know, if you have a rental property in a POA, the POA governs what you can do. They govern when you put your trash cans out or you don't, you know, you leave them in your service yard. But, you know, they govern parking, they have their own ARB, all of those things. This is really meant to influence areas that don't have a POA and get those areas kind of under control.
Right.
So my take is it's too early to tell.
Yeah.
The town government's heart is in the right place with this. They're not looking to make it more restrictive. They're looking to have rules in place where they can solve problems when they arise. Just because you own a short-term rental doesn't mean that you should ruin the life of your neighbors.
Right.
And they need something with teeth that they can enforce, you know, to prevent those situations, which have been occurring for, you know, for years now. And so this is all going to be, in my opinion, up to how well the Hilton Head Island executes on this.
Right.
So CNN's put out an article about the market. They're talking about best case scenario, prices go up 5%. Worst case scenario, prices go down 22%. Which one is it?
That's quite a difference.
Yeah. So which one is it? Which one do you think?
I think prices are going to continue to rise slightly.
What is it about this article that they're missing?
They're doing a general, broad sense of all of the markets, but in our market, we're just seeing low inventory, and that's just going to keep the market going higher.
Yeah, prices. Yeah, I think, you know, that's the thing. All these articles are just so damn clickbaity. Like, what is baity a word?
Stop trying to make
clickbaity
happen. It's not going to happen.
And so, you know, my question is like, what is the measure of a healthy market? So it says last year was a wild ride in the U.S. housing market. I don't know. I wouldn't call it wild. I've seen wild before, and last year to me wasn't wild.
That was wild.
What? Mortgage rates doubled. That was significant, right? We're going to have Brian on here in a few minutes. We're going to talk about mortgage. They doubled and sales plummeted, triggering the lowest month-to-month slump on record. A lot of would-be buyers and sellers watch from the sidelines. But that doesn't say anything about prices. And I think the underlying message that people take away from all this clickbaity is prices are going down. Throughout 2022, the Federal Reserve hiked its benchmark interest rates at a record pace. Housing took the brunt of the impact as the most interest rate sensitive sector of the economy. But what happened with prices? In our market, prices went up fairly significantly, which led to declining sales. My argument with declining sales is, yes, sales declined, but why did they decline? Why do you think that they declined?
Not enough inventory, and the interest rates came up a little bit.
None of the articles talk about that. None of the articles say that the fact that sales went down could be a function of lower inventory. They all say that people stopped buying property, sales went down because of interest rates.
Right.
You think that's true?
No.
As we, push forward into this new year, as your measure for how the market's doing? Is it price? Is it number of transactions? Is it amount of inventory?
Inventory, we got to keep our eye on.
Got to keep her, yeah. Because without inventory to sell, you're not going to have transactions. Right? But without inventory to sell, the transactions that you do have are going to have a lot of upward price pressure on them. There's a follow-up article that was done in the Island Packet, and they interviewed a couple local real estate agents about what to expect in 2023. And they said nearly 1,400 fewer residential homes, condos, and villas were sold through the Hilton Head multiple listing service in 2022 than in the previous year. And, I asked, well, why don't they report on what happened with inventory during the same period of time, right?
Right.
In 2023, experts say Beaufort County's real estate market won't be able to rely on low interest rates or buyers' interest in working remotely. I think that they might not be able to rely on lower interest rates or buyers' interest in working remotely. I think that's a bunch of BS. I think the excitement that people have about making Hilton Head their home persists. I don't see anything that the Federal Reserve has done that has changed that.
Yeah.
The interest rate does affect their purchasing power, right?
Right.
But does it change their interest in this place?
I don't think so.
So there's still a lot of pent-up demand because so many people that tried to buy as things boomed over the last 2 years weren't successful. Now, I think what's happened this last year in 2022 is there are a certain amount of people that were very nervous because there's so much talk about a housing crash. And if those people waited a year, now they're faced with much higher interest rates. And on top of that, higher prices.
Right. In 2017, people were telling us not to buy too, that the market was going to crash, and we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when the pandemic first started,
right,
everybody said that, the world was going to come to an end.
Predicting it's going to crash, but I don't think we're going to see anything like 2008.
In the article, Colette Stevenson with MLS was talking about one factor that nobody's talking about, and I think this is pretty true as well. She's saying, like, if you compare our prices, sure, our prices have gone up a lot. But if you compare our prices with other areas that we might be competing with in terms of somebody wanting to move there from up north, we're still, on the low side.
Right.
I just got back from Southern Florida, the Miami area and all that stuff. Man, our prices are cheap compared to theirs. Like cheap.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, like we're talking about interest rates, let's get Brian on here and get an update from Brian on what's going on with mortgage.
Off to a new year. So we've got a new conforming loan limit set by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, or by the FHFA, which runs them, but $726,200. So their loan limit is up by $79,000 this year. So that just helps expand borrowing money to people. And, the conventional loans offer lower down payments, kind of better underwriting guidelines, more ways to navigate through some people's complexities. So
what's the closest region around us that would have a higher limit?
what is it in Georgia where Reynolds Plantation is? Oconee County?
Yep.
I think is that. They've always been I haven't looked in a long time, but they have always been a higher, were for a long time a higher cost area. And I think that was the closest one.
What do you see as the future? You think rates are going to stay put right now, or?
I think rates have started their slow, hopefully it's slow and not hugely rapid, but slow decline down. Ever since about November, we've started to see it reset some and it start coming down. We're starting to get a lot more stuff into the sixes and things that are inching into the fives. So I think this year brings more of that. We're It's going to keep trickling and going down and hopefully spur some more buyers. I mean, we're seeing plenty of them, as you guys were talking about. It seems inventory is the bigger issue, not rates. I mean, when we're talking to people, they understand they are dating the rate and that we're going to be refinancing in the future, you know, as you guys are talking, when you find the house and that's where you want to be,
Yep.
you buy the house.
Do you think that the shock that happened with buyers was caused by how quickly rates increased, how quickly they doubled?
I think it played a role. Lack of inventory, you know, multiple offers, people losing out, having to constantly bid up, and then all of a sudden the rates just rapidly went up. I mean, I'm sure it had to play a role in some people's plans, but I still think if we had a normal inventory level last year, would have still been a busy, you know, higher productive year.
Yep. Do you think that that shock is starting to wear off?
Yes. People are digested it, they understand that's where it is, and they know they have two choices, which is wait for rates to drop if and when, and how low do they go, and, you know, does that even make a difference to you? Or buy the house in the area you want in the town that you're ready to be in.
So my prediction for our area this next year was an increase in property values of 7%. And I think that that's pretty darn conservative. What do you think rates could potentially go to? Like, best case scenario, like back down to, like, I know it's unlikely, but back down to 3?
I'm guessing 4s.
Okay.
That 4 range. All right, to be conservative with it. I mean, I think there are some things happening, but there was some other influences from the Federal Reserve, their quantitative easing program of buying bonds and mortgage-backed securities that really drove the rates down into the 3s to 2s. And that program is not coming back.
So let's say that interest rates drop by 3%. And you have to wait a year for them to drop by 3%. And during that year, prices go up by 7%.
Who made a bad mistake by waiting.
And that's where people are now. The people that listened to all the clickbait a year ago are sitting there now having to pay a higher interest rate and 20% more for the house in Bluffton.
What it costs to carry that loan for a year or two at a higher rate plus a refinance is nothing if the house were to appreciate even 1 or 2%.
All right, so mailbag time. I got to hold this away because the print is so small.
It's too small.
Micah says, I saw a different realtor guy on YouTube. My first question is, why would you be watching somebody else talking about how we're experiencing the largest gap between existing inventory and new construction that we've ever seen, and that many areas with lots of new construction may see prices fall. I know that means Hilton Head is probably safe, but what about Bluffton? Also, why is the gap so large? Why are builders canceling their contracts? The guy didn't mention any of that, so I thought maybe you'd know.
I don't see any builders canceling contracts in our area. They can't keep up with the building.
Again, the pandemic, I think, has made Hilton Head Island a very, very popular place. And what's happening in the economy hasn't changed people's desire to move here. Right? That's the bottom line. But the reality of it is it costs a hell of a lot more money to build a house now than it did 3 years ago. Right?
Yeah.
And there's a squeeze. There's a squeeze on builders. And, you know, builders, you know, they watch the same media that we do. They read the same headlines that we do. And so many of the headlines are, you know, written to get clicks. And they're not based on the reality of what's happening in the market as a whole, the national market. But really, when you get down to these local markets, you know, things can be very, very different from one region to another. I thank goodness that we live where we live, not just because it's a wonderful place, but because of the weather and the environment and how well the town of Hilton Head and Bluffton takes care of the town. And it's a great place to live, and more people, it's on more people's radar now than it ever has been. How long have you lived here?
Since 2008.
2008. Do you regret the decision to move here? Right? The only time I see people leave here is when they have grandchildren back home that they miss.
Right.
And then they go begrudgingly. Right? I mean, that's the reality of it. So, yeah, I agree with what you say. The local builders, they can't build them fast enough. There's some frayed nerves when it comes to the cost of construction and the cost of land acquisition and all of those kind of things. And, just getting materials. Like,
Right.
it's tough.
Some of them have clauses in there too to protect them. If prices rise
Yeah.
by so much, then they do pass it off to the homeowner.
But that can make, a homeowner nervous, right? Or somebody that's having a house built. Right? Because they don't know going in what the final cost is going to be, right? And so, all those things have an effect. But again, the thing that makes this kind of a non-issue for us is just how darn desirable our market is.
Right.
So, hey, I really appreciate you coming in. First Market Monday of the year, your first Market Monday.
Yeah.
And promise us you'll come back?
I will.
Cool.
Thank you.